This video is intended to describe a stationary, travel-size, light blade mainframe named Abundance, which would be the 25th rendition in short succession for exactly the Abundance field, generating significant vibrational compound interest at this point in this timeline. To assist me in the dissertation will be my whimsical stick figure chakra map, which I'll be referring to quite a bit for different visualization cue reference for the dissertation of the different octaves being described intermittently. And before I discuss the entirety of the crystalline composition, I'll be discussing the primary intention or the primary directive of this stationary mount. So, seen right here with this closed-loop circuit reactive crystalline ignition sequence, it's affixed with wire to a Himalayan salt lamp, most importantly being piloted by an incandescent bulb, which is the classic bulb that actually generates heat, to actually heat the salt, to keep the entirety of the crystalline group at peak optimal charge purification to be more effective for its intended purpose, to be an independent energy generator, to be a tremendous output increasement by purifying the crystalline composition to the highest order. So that's the aspect of why the salt lamp, of course, will work to charge and purify the entirety of the crystalline composition to peak efficiency, so stagnant energies cannot maintain or at least be highly discouraged to be in competition with this high-frequency overture with its own independent charging point. And the aspect of why this is effective for the intended purpose is taking this auger clip right here, which actually runs a very long wire, but most importantly, goes into the ground of a house. So the entire mainframe of an outlet system in a house is actually all connected together by copper wire, and by law, there is a copper rod somewhere on the premises that is driven to the earth to be a contingency for any kind of malfunction energy or even lightning striking a house to discharge the energy safely into the earth. So that is a tremendous advantage that can be utilized to take this entire frequency output platform and give it a tangible output to ground through all the outlets of any given space. And like I mentioned thrice, at least 3 times more during this dissertation, the importance of this concept is that taking this high frequency energy before it's mentioned, then running it through the outlet systems all conjoined up to code by law, then into a copper rod somewhere on the premises driven into the earth by law, is taking that entire frequency pitch of this energy being charged and emanated and piloted through the entirety of the outlet section, which actually would, in theory, of course, confer a tangible containment field of this energy to run through an entire sequence of a house, for example, to be very effective for tangible etheric shielding or transmutation and imbuement of a space. So I feel like that's pretty sufficient to describe as a preface of the intended concept. To, once again, I'll just say it because it's triply important to me to get this out properly, is that this entire frequency pitch is being charged and purified to max capacity, then grounded to the house for all the outlets to be grounded together to take this entire energy pathway of all the outlets and make literally a full containment field of this energy going through an entire space to pilot this energy, most importantly, to take this very exotic high-frequency radio generator and ground it into the earth tangibly. To, of course, encourage making the magic real and making a true energetic enhancer of a space. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and discuss the crystalline composition that is quite vast. Seen up here is the transmutation ratio, which is the very top crown of the band, if you would, or a diadem, to be the ignition sequence of hematite and smoke quartz in tandem. Hematite is a very fantastic iron-based mineral that pulls all stray radio energies through the root chakra very effectively into the earth stars and into the earth marine matrix for reprocessing, in tandem with smoky quartz performing much of the same energetic pathway function of taking all stray negative energies by firmly going through the root into the earth stars, into the earth marine matrix for processing, would thereby confer the concept of the transmutation ratio in ignition sequence, seen going like so. On both brass, for a projective output of the same grounding capacity, as well as silver to be the same intake receptive of both these bands running in tandem for a positive negative charge of transmuting negativity into positivity, as well as, of course, being another lovely contingency to make the magic real, to firmly ground the entire overture of this exotic frequency bandwidth, to encourage it into manifestation by grounding it to the earth. So that'd be the foundational grounding of the entire device. That's, of course, being purified and charged at peak efficiency through this entire salt lamp right here, and then grounded into the space. Can't convey the importance of that nearly enough. So without further ado, I'll be discussing the abundance power pack seen right here that's quite fast and quite complicated, with a heavy concentration of the abundance seen right here in this blade band ignition sequence right here of the abundance ratio. Has been tried and true and utilized quite heavily in this timeline. Starting off with golden healer quartz to be a tremendous gold white light high heart source alignment frequency, which is very obviously self-evidently advantageous to have a vibration that attunes to the heart of creation in an ignition sequence. Right there as part of the abundance ratio, so that the source emanation of the green ray concentration activation is highly augmented with source alignment. Going into peridot, a fantastic third and fourth chakra stimulant, and that of basically the equivalent of chlorophyll. How all this happens, of course, of great growth concentration emanation, which is very conducive to expanding growth in abundance. Then rutilated quartz to further intensify the entire emanation of the green ray in this closed loop circuit. Then going into moss green agate to be the quintessential stabilization of the terrestrial green ray heart chakra element, to encourage the wavelength output of this entire abundance ratio being highly exaggerated to be very further stabilized, to indeed encourage the stabilized momentum of this abundance into tangibility. Then golden healer quartz once again into the legendary emerald. Emerald, a quintessential green ray heart chakra stimulant of great notoriety and royal utilization for abundance, is of course quite famous and prolific as a precious stone that literally all humans have heard of, because quite simply its regard in the human history is very well notarized. So that'd be the abundance ratio, seen like so, completing the ignition sequence all the way until it ties back into the blade band to make an energy ignition sequence of abundance energy. So of course the big idea there too with this diverse construct is that this entire emanation is being highly exaggerated independently of intention or thought, because the salt lamp actually is charging the energy and heating up the salt to intensify this emanation, which is grounding through a space. Then the secondary band right here is more of a full spectrum generator with a strong iron concentration to further ground the trajectory of the entire 7 rays, stimulate independently, to complete the circuit and sequence to intensify the redirection of the energy to ground it to make it real. Starting off with the legendary ruby, quintessential root chakra stimulant of the Earth's range. Then clear quartz is a neutral subcapacitator to naturally ambly run the current of energy through this blade band circuit. Going into carnelian, a tremendously notarized sacrum stimulant, yet it stimulates the entire lower 3 chakras in tandem. It is well utilized in ancient Egyptian mystery school utilization for the aspect of Horus, or Ra, to be a stone of the sun, and or I should say. Clear quartz into tiger's eye to be a tremendous solar plexus stimulant and aligner of the lower 3 chakras. Then once again, peridot, like mentioned, a 3rd and 4th chakra stimulant. Going into emerald once again. Gotta pay attention to the phone's angle here for the dissertation. Emerald to be a quintessential green ray heart chakra stimulant. Then going to clear quartz into aquamarine, a lovely cousin to emerald, the beryl family, of a 4th and 5th chakra stimulant of the water elemental range. Then going into clear quartz into legendary lapis lazuli, seen in 2 doses right here. Lapis lazuli is a fantastic 5th and 6th wind elemental chakra stimulant. And also, of course, is another classic stone of great notarization in Egyptian mystery schools, which is very relevant to this recipient's construct, which is very much in line with his dharmic profession. Clear quartz into amethyst, classic violet ray crown chakra induction frequency that's known to, of course, be a tremendous crown chakra stimulant. So the aspect of these 7 rays is to be a very neutral ambient energizer of the entire light body. To stimulate the entire chakra column in unison is the goal of this blade band. Then to further intensify the effectivity of tangibility is bringing the clear quartz into the hematite to further ground this entire overture. Clear quartz into iron pyrite, that technically would be healer's gold because the magnetite is in the structure. So this is a very fantastic pyrite based with magnetite to actually bring the high frequency energy into the very grounded state to complete the sequence out as it runs its current at basically high revs or max wide open throttle, because it's always being charged at full emanation, to indeed encourage the aspect of firmly grounding that entire high frequency spectrum pitch into the physical structure, into the earth to, once again, as always, make the magic real. Completing that sequence. So those would be the two blade bands on the Abundance Power Pack. Now I'll be discussing the vast continuity of this entire blade face seen right here, which is quite exotic for a distinct purpose, which I'll be saving the selenites, the wood, and the kyanites for last as the capstone of this last dissertation of this guy right here. So down here will be blue zincite. Zincite is a very powerful fire elemental stimulant, but luckily this is a blue ray emanation, so it has a nice 5th chakra induction, which means it has a very powerful intense stimulation to one's highest truth. And to really firmly basically blast out with hurricane force lower 3 chakras any stagnancies that be impeding the natural abundance flow that is our birthright by factory blueprint setting connection to creation. So that'd be the zincite right there to be a tremendous engagement of fire, zest, energy, but luckily for my bluish gray capacity to be a very nice burning off of false self matrices that be impeding the perpetual lack of abundance that is quite simply, at the highest level, an illusion of false self-imprintation. Then right here, like mentioned, a larger dose of lapis that actually was a button that I utilized right here, which is pretty nifty. Then down here would be fulgurite. Fulgurite is a fantastic petrified lightning, which actually is the energy of lightning caught in sand, which is a very powerful full light body stimulant as well, and was utilized by First Nation shamans as a spirit tool to intensify their prayers back to Creator, or the divine for their medicine or their magic to intensify their prayers. So of course with that high frequency energy of lightning, it really intensifies the prayer, which of course this could be considered a crystalline construct in a concentrated prayer format, which intensifies the abundance ratio, which will be grounded through a whole space. So of course, and before I continue on with these other high frequency concepts, is that the contingency of having this energy overture being highly grounded by running through this sequence of transmutation to encourage the mitigation of high frequency overture, and most importantly giving the tangible grounding point of the cord right here, going into the outlet ground, ensures the high frequency overture of this device is firmly arced and grounded so that timeline whiplash or any kind of energetic disturbances and rapid change are mitigated by design. Then moving on would be Libyan gold tektite. Libyan gold tektite was actually a crystalline alloy utilized by the pharaohs of old to be carved into scarab beetles for their finery of their breastplates, which gives it quite the clout of being a crystalline ally of the Magi god king of antiquity that were the pharaohs, so that gives it a tremendous amount of relevancy to this construct, and being a tremendous Libyan gold tektite gold ray of illumination generator, it has a very, very potent solar plexus manifestation capacity, as well as a lovely sacrum stimulation to bring endless joy, virtually. And since it's such a powerful storm elemental cosmic stone, it brings a full gold ray of illumination that actually stimulates the entire chakram in its own right to be very, very enthusiasm generating, which is very, very nice. And also, of course, works as a great dharmic accelerant to intensify one's connection to their dharmic template into tangibility and actually living in that reality. Full of the highest timeline manifest is the aspect of Libyan gold tektite's heavy utilization. Then next to that would be moldavite. Moldavite is quite the famous crystal in vogue right now for great notoriety of acclaim for magic. And so even a small dose right here in a closed-up reactive circuit goes a very long way for that consistent emanation wavelength of moldavite being a tremendous green ray heart chakra stimulant to be a tremendous alignment to one's dharmic template in truth. And so it's very much synonymous with the Holy Grail, the complete attainment of connection to creation, and the aspect also of moldavite being a tremendous dharmic accelerant. Now, of course, it accelerates everything that is the highest self matrix, and is very, very hard on the false self matrix narrative that divides one from creation. Hence, once again, it's been employed with many contingencies to transmute and mitigate the timeline whiplash of transition into one's dharmic template in reality. God willing, at least. Then right here is a very special crystal called phenakite. Phenakite is quite the rare, exotic, high-frequency crystal that is perhaps one of the top 3 crystalline alloys to stimulate the third eye, the crown, and the higher chakras in the mineral kingdom with sheer intensity of divine white light, made physical on the terrestrial plane. So the aspect of phenakite, even a small dose here, brings the entire frequency pitch of this entire device to a very high premium. And with phenakite's influence of vibrational induction of the third eye, it also works to broaden the entire spectrum range of the full range of the chakra column, which of course is developed to expand the tangibility of the wider the chakra column, the more light can actually be in the physical avatar. So that aspect right there is a great spiritual divine intensification to a rather complex intensive device that's a stationary generator. Then next to that would be sunstone, which has been employed quite frequently as the yang to the yin of the abundance ratio up to this point, up to 25 renditions. So the aspect of the green ray of abundance is very receptive intake yin, if you would. So the yang contingency would be the sunstone to be the very positive solar plexus and sacrum stimulant, to be a very encouraging, beneficent masculine energy that makes one feel good and determined and enthusiastic towards one's goals for abundance, to intensify the output of the manifestations. Then, of course, encourage the receptivity with the green ray to encourage the reception of that full circle of the feeling good. Good things happen, quite simply. How you vibrate is how reality manifests. So that aspect right there makes one feel very blessed and very grateful, very enthusiastic, so that it perpetuates the output of abundance, that it, of course, brings the input of abundance with the green ray yin for the intake and the output. Then right here is black tektite, a tremendous cosmic element right here, born of nickel iron meteorite impacting sand to carry that extraterrestrial jolt into creation. To be a very tremendous black ray, thank goodness, which means it's a cosmic-oriented frequency that is a black ray, which what that means, of course, is actually bringing a very powerful vibrational threshold increase. But thank goodness it's black ray, so it's done so from the earth stars, the bottom of the feet, all the way up to be a very viable, tangible vibrational scaffolding from the ground up to raise vibrations as well, which be very encouraging to the rest of the crystalline group in a closed loop emanation. So obviously mentioning that, it's akin to mentioning all the organs that make up this crystalline entity before us in this dissertation are being well notarized as individual parts of the whole that work in tandem to be part of the design functions vibratory output as a whole. Then right here is Sedona Red Rock, from the very top of Bell Rock, actually, my favorite vortice. So the aspect right here of having the red ray, root chakra oriented, high iron matrix based Red Rock of Sedona is to encourage that manifestation of that grounding of that miraculous abundance as well in a very high overture, to encourage a very strong grounding of that high frequency energy. Hence, Sedona is quite famous and legendary for being a place of magic because of its great capacity to ground high frequency emanations into tangible range of reality that looks like magic. Because the whole aspect of why magic has its name is the root word means to make it real. So Sedona is the quintessential place of magic to make it real. And speaking of Sedona, the very core of this device actually is a sycamore from Sedona, Arizona, that's grounded into the waterway of Oak Creek, which also means that this wood is also very, very abundant, because the roots that tap into the water are actually always tapped into a running flow of water, so it never has to wait for water. It's always very abundant, which has been very useful for that, even the vibrational concept of the wood donor, to have that of abundance in the natural vibratory output of the wood range used right here for distinct purpose as a core. Then, on both sides right here next to the wood range, I'll describe the selenite, which oftentimes I save for last in any given dissertation for a good reason. Selenite is a very, very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant all the way back to one's godhead or higher self continuity. So it makes for a fantastic gateway to the higher self of the 6th, 7th, and all the non-physical chakras to have that divine connection to true guidance unimpeded. And the aspect also, what's very advantageous about selenite, it works with that high frequency induction, burns off all stagnant energies from top to bottom of the auric field, which is by itself truly a dynamic master healer. But where it always shines in any given spirit tool or light tech construct that comes into existence is its critical effect. It can take this entire crystalline pitch of everything I've mentioned thus far and yet to mention in this closed-loop reactive circuit in real time. It can purify all of these crystals in its closed-loop reactive circuit. It can intensify or amplify all of these crystals, and most importantly perhaps, bring equilibrium and harmonization to the entire frequency pitch as a whole. So hence I'm doing a triangle to show off that triumphant trifecta of the purification of all these crystals in a constant closed-loop circuit, the amplification, then the harmonization is the critical foundation of why they are so essential in my life's work, to be a very effective spirit tool in that capacity, which, like I mentioned, takes the entire frequency pitch of this entire device, it runs through its circuit for a distinct purpose. Then right here would be the full spectrums of kyanite utilized, which would be black kyanite to encourage a very strong rapid grounding of this energy into the tangible range, because kyanites in general are the fastest transferabilities of energy in the mineral kingdom for that purpose. Hence, this blade face has the 4 spectrums of the kyanites to be the most diverse, rapid transfers of energy through this entire broadcast, through an entire network, grounded into space, and of course into the primary custody of the recipient of this construct to be a very dynamic overhaul rapid timeline accelerant to that tremendous abundance ratio. So black kyanite, like I mentioned, is the most rapid grounder of energy through the Earth stars into the Earth at a very quick rate, which also serves like a surge protector to ensure the frequency pitch is always grounding through at a very comfortable optimum. And as well, of course, as always, as what's important here is to encourage the aspect of being a tangibility of magic to make it real, not just be hearsay, God willing. And before I continue on with the rest of the kyanite dissertation, I'll describe this guy back here on the very back side, which has that distinct purpose and very heavy concentration of black kyanite for exactly this reason, before I discuss the other kyanites. So the black kyanite seen back here is a very large contingency to further intensify the contact patch on the back side of this device and its closed-loop circuit right here to encourage the rapid grounding of this energy is very quickly into the Earth to indeed be a surge protector. So it's a very viable contingency to encourage this energy group to ground into the Earth for rapid transmutation of negativity into positivity. And of course, it has its own blade band around it, which is designed for a distinct purpose of utilizing black tourmalated quartz, which is actually bolts of black tourmaline in a core structure, to work as a neutral ambient amplifier of this entire blade band like quartz always does. Except having black tourmaline in the structure also works to intensify the black ray purification of swirled black tourmaline, which is another very famous negativity neutralizer in this timeline in a quartz structure. So the natural amplification of black tourmaline is the backside of the subcapacitation to encourage the rapid transmutation of negativity into positivity, much like an etheric vacuum cleaner, to pull negativity in and bring, of course, negativity sucked in, transmuted, all that jazz, to encourage the full spectrum of light in the optimal configuration. In tandem with that, as a part of the blade band on the back side of this surge protector back here, I guess you could say, would also be shungite. Shungite is quite famous and in vogue in this timeline for being very notarized to mitigate 5G or unnatural wavelength distortions that modern humans must contend with, as they go about their business with cell phones. I'm using one right now to describe this video. And so shungite, in its own closed-loop circuit with natural amplification of black tourmaline to be very complementary, also brings a very powerful full carbon-based purification of the auric field to once again transmute negativity into positivity or undesirable wavelengths that be compromising one's energetic integrity and wholeness and harmony. And so that's where the shungite plays a nice role in these stationary mounts, is to encourage the mitigation of EMF, harmful, unnatural energy wavelengths, to ensure the entire space of this energy is being piloted through all of the outlets to, of course, make a tangible containment field for the benefit of the recipient's auric field's integrity wall in their little magic castle, or if they're, home, or hence its travel size designed to be able to take to a hotel pretty easy, for example, Airbnb, and plug that guy in and run the energy and purify the entire space with quite efficiency, quite simply in that regard. That's the aspect of why this guy is a very ambitious travel size mount, is for that purpose. Okay, So that's enough about black kyanite, I think. I'll be continuing with the cousins of orange kyanite right here, which is a very rapid transferal of the sacrum chakra to the highest configuration. Basically, puts the creativity back to factory blueprint setting and rapidly bridge past limitations of creativity that would be impeding one's abundance as well. Obviously, there's a theme here of why it's designed to be very intricate to ensure the goal of abundance is tangibly maintained. Then right here is green kyanite to be the most rapid transfer of heart chakra energy to the abundance spectrum very quickly, as well as blue kyanite to be a very rapid third eye stimulant of the right and left hemispheres to the awakened third eye to be, of course, in alignment with that abundance reality for a very comprehensive full connection timeline junction shift to that abundance conscious reality in a very, very, very dynamic ratio to encourage the rapid transfers of energy to simply, once again, as always, make it real. So, of course, when the four spectrums of kyanite are involved, it's such a rapid transfer of energy, the entire construct through the top and bottom of the auric field. It also works like another layer of etheric Teflon to discourage any stagnant energies from impeding the natural healthy flow of the auric field, and that particularly, of course, in this rendition of the dominance of the vibratory output of abundance, to be a tremendous encouragement of that God-given right of true abundance, that is that way of the universe. And particularly the connection of the way of the universe is the big goal there. Then the very top, to encourage a very strong, this part will actually get extra far out. Now more far out, probably more in this 26.5 minutes I've been ranting to this phone right now discussing this subject. So this is my best disclaimer to say we're getting into some extra far out territory. So the aspect of smoky celestial quartz, smoky quartz, much seen like right here, is very famous for transferring negativity into positivity by grounding to the earth. But the aspect of the celestial structure has a very dynamic, interesting effect on the auric field by being a perfect dimmer switch of any emanation contact patch with this design to encourage the ideal receptivity, or basically like a dimmer switch of the entire construct for wherever auric field is interacting with it, to ensure the regulatory pitch of this device is very adaptable and very even more sentient, and it does get quite a tongue twister to describe this coherently and concisely. It's always in every one of these videos. I still haven't quite mastered that after talking about it hundreds of times at this point, because it's very far out. But the aspect of what's important here also works as a regulator or a surge protector or even a auto-regulatory governor to ensure the frequency pitch interacting with the auric field is always at a dynamic equilibrium that's very reactive to whatever is required based on the higher self template in real time for the most comfortable highest pitch frequency resonance without being too much for the system. So what that means, of course, that this frequency pitch will, of course, meet the recipient's auric field where it's at, then work from there for the highest good in comfort, ease, and efficiency without being too much shock and awe, which is what I like also in my life's work, is tangibility, efficiency, and stability are my pillars I do try to live by when it comes to everything I'm up to. So that aspect also works as a fantastic higher self blueprint regulator to ensure that the governance of one's highest spiritual continuity is in real time, always moment to moment, always dynamically auto-reacting for one's highest good based on their highest blueprint or the highest dharma or their timeline's highest holy grail configuration. And also this wood has been anointed with a very special variety of oil I have had the privilege of utilizing in these constructs, which is a very long sci-fi story in itself. But here's an older sigil of my dear colleague friend Jim, Sahu Jim I called him, because his oil brand is called Sahu. And so the aspect right here of the Ankh with the roses and the blue lotus was an older sigil pattern that he's now updated. But the big idea, of course, is that the oil is its own amazing, miraculous story that could be its own long dissertation of the most sacred oil I've had my hands on in my entire life, particularly for these kind of purposes. It's pretty self-evident that I'm pretty serious about these endeavors. So anything that's efficient and of noteworthy, remarkable status, I like to employ, like Formula One racing. Every ounce counts to a certain tier of excellence to be obtained, as far as I'm concerned, with sheer efficiency. And so the Sahu oils have been blended by a family that's been doing this for thousands of years in ancient Egypt, and they're still doing it today. It's a very long sci-fi story, but the long story short that's very relevant is that the best oil that is possibly available for metaphysical endeavors has been well anointed in this entire construct with the real deal vibratory platform of ancient magic of antiquity made by descendants of the Magi, and and that kind of intrinsic legitimacy has a great imprintation on the oil that's been produced by thousands of years by a sacred bloodline. It's very sci-fi, very far out, and very, very cool. And the proof's in the pudding. It comes to, of course, the vibrational viscosity being anointed here makes a very powerful wavelength intensification to whatever energy circuit is being run through a light blade construct, for example. So there we have it. So the long story short of this entire construct also is that's developed to be a very dynamic unit that's always being purified and charged by an incandescent bulb to purify the frequency to the highest capacity, and most importantly, ground it into the space so the excess energy of this entire exotic, well fortified and diverse generator is always being purified and piloted through the entire space going into the earth to bring continuity and tangibility of this high frequency device, which is always revving at 9,000 RPMs with the purification of this emanation to run through an entire space to make the magic real, and to be very much a full light body generator, and to be a very heavy another concentration of the abundance ratio that's performed rather remarkably admirably up to this time period of this being number 25 by organic demand, and just how it's manifested by itself, and and to purify space. So it's very practical also, like I mentioned, to travel with this, to put this in a space, purify a whole Airbnb of pre-existing energies, very Ghostbuster style, to make a etheric vacuum cleaner, which transmutes negativity into positivity and encourages the ideal abundance receptivity. Quite simply, that's the construct's concept right there. Well, I'm going to go ahead and discontinue my rant at this point. 1,000 blessings, and may the force be with us all.